With the Detroit Lions having secured their first playoff victory in 32 years against the Los Angeles Rams, they're now setting their sights on their second one against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and what is set to be a rematch from the regular season. Stay tuned, everybody. This is about to get fun.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. But before we dive in, just want to say to all my loyal subscribers and fans, thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for your view and your support and your patrons. It means the world to me that I have such loyal subscribers. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. I hope you all enjoy the content, but even more so, I hope to gain you all subscribers if I've earned and deserved your subscription. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say God bless. I hope you all are doing well. And with that, let's dive into the show. So, here's the thing, folks. Lions season is continuing. We all know this. Lions won an absolutely emotional, dramatic game for their wild card matchup against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday night. So, we already know the Lions are moving on to the divisional round. Monday night, we found out that the Lions were going to be playing against a familiar foe in more than one sense, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, what do I mean by a familiar foe? Well, there's two main ways that the Lions fans can look at this. One, first and foremost, a little bit of a history lesson here. The Lions are going to play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, what most people probably don't remember, but the older Lions fans will definitely remember this, is that from 1977 until 2002, the Buccaneers were actually one of our division rivals in what was known as the old NFC Central Division. That was where they were, because in the old days, in the NFC Central Division, the Lions were part of a 5-team division instead of the 4-team division that it is right now. There was the Lions, the Bucs, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Bears. In 2002, when they realigned the divisions, the Bucs were taken out, and then they were put down in the NFC South. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, like I said, for a good period of time, the Lions and Bucs were division rivals. And if you take a look at the matchup history between these two teams, the Lions actually currently lead the Buccaneers in total matchup victories with 32 wins to 29 losses. And if you actually do the math and you go back and you check out the matchup history when they were actually in the NFC Central, when the NFC Central still existed, the Lions actually were the lead in that matchup as well. They had 27 victories to 24 losses until they were moved out of the division to the NFC South. So again, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of familiarity between these two teams just on a historical record. But what's probably more relevant, what's probably more commonly known right now is that the Lions and the Buccaneers played earlier this season. So again, the Lions and Bucs, they are very familiar because of the fact that they played earlier in the season in Week 6, where the Lions went down to Tampa and they beat the Buccaneers 20-6. So now what we have is we have a matchup where it's actually a rematch between the Lions and the Buccaneers in the divisional round of the playoffs. And as the NFL has already announced, the Lions and Bucs are going to play Sunday at 3 p.m., which is kind of weird to state because normally when you play football games, it's usually at 1 o'clock, 4:25, or 8 o'clock. 3 p.m. is just kind of like a little bit of a weird number for me, but c'est la vie. So that's what we know. That's what we've got coming up right now. Now, why am I talking about the fact that the Lions are playing the Bucs? Everybody already knows about that. Well, number one, we're going to get into some specifics about the Bucs and the Lions in this episode here as far as breaking down the statistical strengths, what their comparative values are towards one another, so on and so forth. But also part of the reason why I'm doing this episode is to try and, re-clarify a couple of things because in a previous episode that I talked about, I'll put that also back up at the top so that way you guys can kind of go back and understand what I'm trying to get at here. I kind of gave the impression to some people that the Lions were kind of already looking past the Buccaneers and were already kind of like just thinking, you know what, we're going to beat them. We're not even worried about them. We're just looking towards, getting our ultimate goal, which was the Super Bowl, which is what I was talking about in that episode. And I think in some ways I didn't do a very good job of explaining the fact that, listen, the Lions aren't looking past the Bucs. It's like, listen, you take a look at what the Bucs are as a team. They are still a challenge. They are still a team that is a threat. Every team that's in your way is a threat. But the way I'm looking at it is, okay, the ability, the probability would be another word for the Lions to get to the Super Bowl because of the fact that the Cowboys were knocked out by the Packers, and now that the fact that the Lions have a second home playoff game, I'm just going to say this, it ridiculously heightened the Lions' probability of being able to go deeper and deeper into the playoffs, which is why I kind of made that episode the way I did. Didn't do exactly the greatest job of explaining it, and I did leave a bad impression that, the Lions are not even taking the Bucs seriously. Oh, I guarantee you they are taking them seriously. Because I know this for myself, and I know this when it comes to playing sports, and I know the professionals know this. It is neither wise nor right to blow off an opponent. Again, I go back to what, Bruce Lee used to say. Bruce Lee said, do not underestimate any opponent. Do not underestimate anybody, because you can be beat on any given day. And again, put that in football terms, any given Sunday. So it's like, listen, just because I think the Bucs are not as good of a team as the Lions does not mean I do not perceive them as a threat. And it certainly does not mean that the Lions don't perceive them as a threat. And that's where we're going to start kind of getting into this comparative analysis between the two teams. Because what I'm going to do, like I've done in the past, I'm going to put up statistical numbers comparing one team's offense versus one team's defense, and then we're going to do a little bit of a comparative analysis talking back and forth here. So that way we can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here when it comes to both teams. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the Bucs offense versus the Lions defense. So when we take a look at the Bucs offense, and I'm going to put the numbers up here really quickly, what we're seeing from the Buccaneers is overall, it's kind of a mid-range offense as far as productivity. It could be also, you could consider it a little bit of a below-average producing offense. But what does this offense really do well? One, they're really great at converting on fourth down. They do have a lot of explosive plays, especially through the air. And that's pretty much what they're known for. They can convert on fourth downs quite a bit. They're decent in scoring. They're decent on their top 10 in third down conversion. So this is a team that definitely has something to offer as far as an offensive productivity. But the one thing that they aren't very good at is running the ball. They're dead last in rushing yards total. They're dead last in rushing average. And they're second from last in terms of rushing first downs. This is not an offense that can run the ball at all. Like I said, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, this is an offense for the Buccaneers that solely 100% relies on Baker Mayfield's ability to throw the football and Chris Godwin and freaking Mike Evans for catching the football. This offense is totally predicated on the passing game. And even in that, they're just around midfield of the NFL when it comes to their ability to be a productive passing offense. They just do a really good job in getting high chunk plays and explosives. So that's what we have with the Buccaneers offense. Now, going to the Lions defense. Again, I know that we've talked about this Lions defense in the past, and I do my best every single time to not continue to give Aaron Glenn a whole lot of guff. And the reason why is because, listen, as much as I have had a problem with Aaron Glenn over the course of the year, and I still have problems with him because it's like, listen, there are times I just feel like, he's not doing a very good job, but it's like, listen, so long as we find ways to win, I'm not going to complain too much. But when we take a look at the statistical analysis here, there's definitely problems that are very, very prevalent when it comes to this Lions defense. Again, not very good in keeping out teams or opponents in terms of scoring, in terms of yards. They are, however, again, still a really, really damn good rush defense. Second in yards, third in rushing average, third in rushing first downs. They're also a top 10 defense in terms of third down conversion stops. So they're doing really good in that area too. But perhaps one of the best things about this defense is its ability to get pressure on the quarterback. They are the number one pressure overall defense, and they're the number one pressure rate defense. This is a team that has the ability to get the quarterback uncomfortable. This is a team that has the ability to stop opposing offenses on third down, and they are deadly in stopping rushing attacks. They are suffocating. Otherwise, there are a lot of problems for this defense. They're not really good in red zone. They're not really good on fourth down stops. They also give up a lot of first downs by penalties. Again, there's both good and bad to this defense, but more bad than good. I'm not trying to say that to be a certain kind of way about Aaron Glenn, but the facts be the facts. You take a look at the stats, you take a look at the rankings, that's exactly what it is. So when you take a look at the Lions and the Lions defense and the Buccaneers offense, it's definitely a very, very interesting matchup here, because what do the Bucs do really well? They throw the ball well. That's their offense. What's the main weakness for the Lions defense? Pass defense. So that already right there poses a significant problem for the Lions defense. However, though, that's only half of the equation. The other half of the equation we have to take a look at is the Lions offense versus the Buccaneers defense. Now, where the Buccaneers offense is kind of like a little bit middle of the road and has a couple of nice spices sprinkled in with things that are really good, the Buccaneers defense is a little bit better in terms of what it can provide in terms of opposition to opposing NFL offenses, and we're going to see it here up on the screen. Number one, this is a top 10 scoring defense in terms of points that they've given up. They're ranked number 7th. They're pretty good in terms of rushing component. However, they're, again, very, very bad when it comes to passing defense. They're just no good. They're ranked 29th in overall yards given up. They're ranked 30th in terms of passing first downs given up. So great in rush defense, terrible in passing defense. They're not really all that good in terms of pressure percentage or pressure rate, but they do have a lot of sacks. They're really good at not missing tackles, and they're also pretty opportunistic in getting turnovers. So again, there are certain things about this Bucs defense that are really, really good. But again, much like the Lions defense, probably though to a little bit of a lesser degree, there are some things about this defense that the Bucs have that are really, really bad. Now, that's the Bucs defense. When we take a look at the Lions offense, I mean, come on, folks. You're going to just see the stats up on the screen. There's not really much else to say. This is an offense that is prolific, explosive, efficient. Use any positive connotation that you will for when it comes to talking about the Lions offense, and it fits. You're top 5 in points scored. You're top 3 in yards. You're top 2 in passing yards. You're top 2 in passing first. You're top 5 in rushing yards and rushing average. You're top 10 in third down conversion percentage. You're top 10 in scoring drive percentage. You're top 3 in red zone percentage. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And then you take a look at the passing and rushing explosives. They're also top 10, top 5, top 15 in all those categories. So it's just like, listen, this is a badass dynamite offense. It's tops in virtually almost every category, and virtually no category save one is outside of the top 16. So it's like, listen, this offense knows how to rock. It knows how to roll. When you got Ben Johnson, you got Jared Goff, and you got all those weapons that they got to work with, such as Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Gibbs, Montgomery, Jamo. It's like, it's no wonder this offense is just a literal badass offense. It's just awesome to watch. And you can see it in the stats that are prevalent up on the screen that I just showed. So that's what you've got. You got a great Lions offense against a kind of Bucs defense, and then you've got a Bucs offense going up against a very subpar, but yet still has some good area Lions defense. So again, this is a really interesting matchup because a lot of areas where one team is weak in, the other team is really strong in. So it's like, okay, we still got a good matchup going on here. But then that begs the question, well, what is the really, really, really clear matchup that, in my opinion, is going to decide how this game is won and lost? Pardon me, my papers are just giving me absolute fits right now. Kind of a little bit annoying, but here we go. The clear matchup for me that is going to decide how this game is won and lost is red zone offenses versus red zone defenses. Because again, I talked about it when I had the stats up on the screen, but you guys are going to understand it even further more when I start talking about this. Go back and, well, you don't even have to go back. I'll just explain it right here. The Lions have the third best red zone offense in the league. So it's a top 3 red zone offense. When they get into the red zone, they're scoring. But what's interesting about this is that if you take a look on the opposite side of this fence, the Buccaneers' red zone defense is also ranked third best in the NFL. So you have the third best red zone offense versus the third best red zone defense. That right there is a very interesting coincidence, and it right there tells me that whichever unit does a really good job in terms of keeping the other in or out of the red zone is going to be the factor that wins this game. Because take a look at on the opposite side of it. The Lions have one of the best red zone offenses, and the Bucs have one of the best red zone defenses. Whereas the Lions have one of the worst red zone defenses, and the Bucs have one of the worst red zone offenses. The Lions' red zone defense is ranked 29th. The Bucs' red zone offense is ranked 30th. So it's like, listen, whoever's able to freaking crack in the red zone the most points is going to be the one that wins this game. Now, that's the clear matchup that I think decides who wins this game. But there's another important matchup that might have some bearance, but not nearly as much as that one. And here it is. The ability for the Lions to get pressures or sacks on Baker Mayfield from this Buccaneers offensive line. Like I said when I was talking about the Lions defense, they have the best overall pressure total in the NFL out of all defenses, and they have the best pressure rate out of all NFL defenses. So this is a defense that knows how to get after the quarterback and make him uncomfortable. Doesn't always translate into sacks, but this team does know how to get the quarterback uncomfortable in the pocket. Well, here's something I want to bring up here. I decided to take a look at this. The Buccaneers offensive line this year has not been the greatest. In fact, if you go to StatMuse and you just type in most sacked quarterbacks in 2023, Baker Mayfield is the 6th most sacked quarterback in the NFL. I think he's had 40 sacks this year. That to me tells me that the Lions will have a lot of opportunities to get after Baker Mayfield. Why? Well, number one, the offensive line of the Bucs is not that strong, but also number two, we already know that Baker Mayfield is dealing with not now one, but two different ankle injuries. He sustained another ankle injury to his good ankle against the Eagles, and his right ankle, the one that was bad, is still not fully healed. So it's like, listen, if the Lions get after Baker Mayfield against this susceptible Buccaneers offensive line, it should provide a lot of opportunities for the Lions to get stops in critical moments. So, those are the stats and the matchups that I think are really going to have a key overall bearance on what happens in this game. So those are some of the reasons why I think the Lions could have a very distinct advantage over the Bucs, other than just being at home, like I've talked in the past, and also just more so than being the better overall team, in my opinion. But there's something else about this that I think is also going to really play a heavy factor into why the Lions win this game. And I'm sorry, this paper's just not giving me any leverage today, so I'm just going to have to deal with it. Here's the other reasons why I think the Lions have a very, very clear, distinct advantage over the Bucs in this game. Go back to that game that we played earlier this year in Week 6. I know some people have seen this being posted around the internet, but this is an absolutely just perfect, beautiful point. If you go back to Week 6, how many Lions were out for that game in terms of injuries? Jonah Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Pascal, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, James Houston, and Brian Branch were all ruled out prior to the game. David Montgomery started that game, but then was lost in the game due to injury. So at that point, the Lions are missing their two starting running backs. They're missing their starting left guard. They're missing their starting safety. They're missing one of their best pass rushers. They're missing another starting safety and a really good rotational defensive lineman. So right there, you've got 7 key injuries that the Lions are dealing with versus, I went back and checked the Bucs injury report. They were only missing 2 players. One that they had lost prior to the season on IR, and that was Ryan Jensen, their center. And the other was a linebacker that over the course of the season really hasn't done all that much in the first place, which is Anthony Nelson. So 2 injuries, 1 real injury if you really want to break it down, to the Lions' 7. So the Lions almost had 3 times as many players that were out due to injury. The Lions, like I said, were without their 2 top running backs, 1 completely and 1 for most of the game. So think about that one on top of that. The Bucs have not seen Jahmyr Gibbs yet. All they've seen is what he looks like on tape. They have not seen him on the field. Then you think about the amount of defensive talent that the Lions were missing in that game. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch, James Houston, Josh Pascal, and think about this. 3 out of those 4 guys are playing right now. And I totally believe that James Houston is going to play this week because he practiced fully all last week. I don't see any way in hell he does not play in the divisional round. I fully expect he's going to play. And I would be shocked and absolutely ridiculously livid if Dan Campbell and the training staff sits him out for another week. And then, like I said, our starting left guard was also out as well. So there was a lot of key players that were missing for the Lions in that game. But yet, we were on the road in that game, and we still won the game 20-6. Now we're at home, and in comparison to where we were at Week 6, when we won 20-6 on the road at their place, we're fully healthy. Because every single one of those players, except Houston, is currently playing and is cleared to play right now, and there's no problems with any of them. And again, we're going to be at home where the Lions have been a completely different team, a much better team than they have been on the road. But like I just said, the Lions won on the road against the Bucs 20-6. Now, I know some Buccaneers fan or some Lions fans is going to try and point out the fact of what the Bucs did against the Eagles on freaking Monday night. But here's what I'm going to say. That right there needs to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt here, because the Eagles literally came into the playoffs literally limping. They literally had lost 5 of their previous 6 games, and they looked like a team that literally had no destination on what they were trying to do, looked like they were completely lost, and they had already completely given up. So to me, it's like, yeah, the Eagles made the Bucs look really, really good. And congratulations to the Bucs getting a win. But it's like, listen, the Eagles were probably I'm just going to say this right now. The Eagles were probably the weakest team coming into the playoffs just purely because of how poorly they'd been playing going into the playoffs. So to me, it's like, listen, I don't think that's a really true kind of like litmus test, if you will, of what the Bucs really are about. They're going to get a much better litmus test once they come to Ford Field and play the Lions because, oh, that's right, who did we just play? We just played the Los Angeles Rams, who a lot of people considered the most dangerous wild card team coming in for the NFC playoffs, and we beat them. Again, I'm not trying to make it sound like that we're just going to completely destroy the Bucs. We still got a hard game to play. The Bucs are still talented. But it's like, listen, I think that with all the talent that we're going to have in this game that we didn't have last time, and the fact that this Lions team plays significantly better at home, I really think that the Lions have a good shot of doing it. And again, the trend data that I talked about in my previous episode, the home team in the divisional round wins 75% of the time based on trend data history. So to me, it's just like, listen, there's a lot of things that are going for the Lions this week. But again, you still have to go out. You still have to put in the practice. You still have to put in the work. And I guarantee you that's exactly what Dan Campbell is saying. And I guarantee you that's what every single leader in the Detroit Lions locker room is saying. It's like, listen, don't take nothing for granted. You still go out. You still put in the work because we want to make sure that when we step on the field, we're doing everything that we need to do correctly to get the win. But again, I think that this matchup that we got coming up is going to be a fun one, especially with all the history and familiarity that are between the two franchises. But it's going to be a fun game no matter what. But with that having been said, I think I've done a pretty good job of explaining everything, so I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. I also encourage you all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so, again, please subscribe. It helps me out, and I'm thankful for each subscription that I can get. But I also want to ask you all, after you subscribe to the channel, to please make sure you also turn on that bell notification icon to go along with it, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers always going up, but we want to make sure we turn on that notification icon, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. To help in that endeavor, please share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. Share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the more it spreads, the bigger the channel grows, and the better it does. And with that, I just want to again say thank you all to everybody that have watched the content. It truly is a blessing to me that I have people that want to watch and hear what I have to say. And to those that keep coming back, my loyal subscribers, again, I'm so thankful for each and every one of y'all. And to those that decided to subscribe with today's episode, welcome to the MCM family. And to those that still need a little bit more convincing, hopefully you'll come back and I'll get another chance to do so. But to everybody, I just want to say, again, God bless. Thank you all for your patronage in watching the show. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.